Kendra Andrews come out, and she's over at ESPN. And there's Alexa Philippou talking about the WNBA discussing a moratorium proposal that would apply to an upcoming league business, including free agency qualifying offers and core designations, which were set to begin as early as Sunday. Breanna Stewart said that while a qualifying offers may be going out, there's an understanding from all players that no one should sign anything because any contract signed would fall under the current CBA number.
For the first time ever, WNBA players were staring at contracts worth 5 or 6 times their current salary. Real money, life-changing money. Then, out of nowhere, they were told to walk away from it, not negotiate, not counter, reject it completely. Millions left untouched, free agency frozen. So who convinces professional athletes to turn down the biggest pay raise in league history? And why does that single decision suddenly threaten the entire future of the WNBA?
Clown show that is the WNBA, and as I always say, the gift that keeps on giving. We have to break this down as WNBA players are being advised to not sign any of these contracts that are about to be getting thrown out by these general managers around the league. This league is at a complete standstill. This is insanity.
Everyone thought this was going to be a victory lap, a superstar riding momentum, free agency opening up, money raining down like confetti. Instead, it turned into the kind of self-inflicted disaster you normally only see when someone tries to argue with a ref mid-technical foul.
When it comes out of my mouth, every time it comes out of my mouth that you have players that are vice presidents of the players union for one league owning a different professional basketball league. It's just baffling. But nonetheless, we found out yesterday, I did a video, the NBA and WNBA, very smart. Very smart. We said, they came out, they said, you know what? We're under a moratorium here. Let's start sending out qualifying offers to free agents.
Because here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. One of the biggest stars in the league, a player who already made it, decided it was her personal mission to tell everyone else not to take the money, not negotiate harder, not tweak the deal, not push for specific changes, just don't sign at all, freeze everything, burn the calendar, hit pause on reality.
So it looked like WNBA players are stalemate, and they do not want to sign this CBA. Well, I am here to tell you guys the WNBA look like it's not going to be no more damn WNBA. I just got to be honest, man. The way these players are sitting around here not wanting to agree on a deal is beyond astonishing to me. I thought a deal would have been done, and as of right now, a strike is coming any day now. Either a strike or a lockout. Now, WNBA owners put out a report yesterday that stated that the owners want teams to move forward with free agency.
And that's when people started blinking slowly, because this isn't just any player. This is someone who doesn't just play in the league. She helps run a competing one, a whole different basketball operation positioned as the shiny alternative. Different branding, different pitch, different investors, same players being courted.
So here it says, WNBA stars reportedly won't sign contracts until new CBA deal is agreed. Here it says the collective bargaining agreement. Let me pause this. Or maybe I can't. Okay, let me get this out the way. Whatever. The collective bargaining agreement passed on January 9th. Both parties reportedly remain far apart in their expectations for a new deal, and the early repercussions are being felt as stars reportedly won't sign new contracts.
And somehow we're all supposed to pretend that telling WNBA players to refuse contracts while owning a rival league is just leadership, right? If this were a movie, this would be the moment the audience groans because the villain is being way too obvious. You don't even need investigative journalism for this one. You just need basic object permanence. Player, union executive, league owner, competing league, all at the same time. Totally normal. Nothing to see here. The wild part is how quiet everyone got about it. Sports media that normally treats conflicts of interest like blood in the water suddenly developed selective blindness. Nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to say it out loud. Because once you say it, the whole thing sounds insane. They ended the negotiation freeze and sent out qualifying offers. Not because they expected anyone to sign them. They didn't. Everyone knows the numbers are based on the old structure, the smaller caps. the outdated maxes, the offers that look laughable compared to what's being discussed for the new deal.
I said this before, and I'll say it again. There's no CBA deal. The players don't want to agree to what the owners are proposing. Perfect. Grab Asia Wilson, grab Sabrina, grab Sophie, grab the superstar, the main attraction, Caitlin Clark, and let's start this league fresh. Get rid of all the old, bitter players that think they're entitled to something. Pay those 5 ladies and move on from scratch.
But that's the genius part, because now the argument isn't theoretical anymore. It's not vibes and slogans and solidarity hashtags. It's a document with your name on it and a number attached. And suddenly you're not arguing about justice in the abstract. You're staring at math. And math has a funny way of cutting through ideology. Imagine being a mid-tier player, not a superstar, no shoe deal, no national commercials, no backup income stream. You're making around $100,000, maybe less. You're playing overseas every offseason just to keep the lights on. Your body never really recovers. They're not the second-year players who just broke into the league. They're the veterans, the ones who've been around long enough to remember the bad years, the ones who spent a decade underpaid while the league struggled to find its footing. Their frustration is real. Their resentment makes sense. But here's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. They're not the draw anymore.
Our Madison Marie actually talked to former WNBA MVP, multiple-time champion Breanna Stewart at the Sports Illustrated Awards this past Tuesday. Let's go ahead and listen to what Breanna had to say.
I mean, it's really exciting for me to see how far the W's come. Like, you can see it just from a pure attendance and numbers standpoint, but also just the way that when I was a rookie, what we had to what we have now. And, you know, while we are trying to figure out the CBA negotiation, we don't ever forget where we came from, and we just know where we.
The explosion in ratings didn't come from veterans. It came from rookies. It came from first and second-year players who arrived with built-in fan bases, college hype, social media reach, and rivalries people actually tune in for. The casual audience isn't circling matchups based on who negotiated the last CBA. They're watching for the new faces, the storylines, the hype, and most of those players, they're on rookie contracts, which creates a terrifying little thought experiment the union really doesn't want anyone exploring. What if the league didn't blink? What if it just kept going? Because if you strip this down to pure entertainment value, the matchups people care about don't disappear with a work stoppage. The league could field rosters heavy on rookies and recent draft picks, and the ratings would barely flinch. The games people tune in for are still there. The names driving clicks and ticket sales aren't the ones threatening to sit out. That's not disrespectful. That's reality. And this is where the whole thing starts to feel less like a labor dispute and more like psychological warfare.
Now, under the current new agreement, the way it's looking, under the current old agreement, my apologies, the players are not going to sign any new contracts, but they will negotiate deals to possibly play for these new teams. Now, no reports has come out about players actually making a leap from their current teams to the new teams, but it's going to be very interesting moving forward. Now, today is January the 11th. On this day, we're supposed to have WNBA free agency negotiations happening today. Now, it's supposed to go on from today, I believe, till February the 6th. Now, as of right now, like I stated, we haven't got any update on any free agency news.
Because the owners didn't have to say a word. They didn't insult anyone. They didn't escalate rhetoric. They just let the numbers do the talking. They shifted the entire conversation from respect and symbolism to dollars and timelines. And suddenly public opinion shifted with it. At first, the story was clean. Players deserve more. The league is growing. Pay them. Easy win. That narrative held strong for about 10 days. Then came the theatrics. Inflatable props, protest trucks, social posts that felt less like negotiation and more like revenge fantasies. That's when casual fans started asking questions. Not hostile questions, curious ones. Like why a league that's never turned a profit is being accused of exploitation, or why no one on the player side ever acknowledges that the NBA has subsidized losses for nearly 3 decades. And that's exactly what's being offered. Not perfectly, not without flaws, but substantially. When you respond to that with escalation instead of refinement, people start wondering what the end game actually is, especially when one of the loudest voices telling players to hold the line happens to have an entire backup plan already funded.
agree that the WNBA is experiencing exponential growth. Okay? The WNBA added the Valkyries this season, and they're adding 3 more teams in the next few years. Would you think that a league that is failing and not growing would be adding more teams or not? I would argue that they'd be adding teams, okay? Now, you say they lost $50 million last year, conceded that point. The NBA and WNBA have a new TV deal that's $2.2 billion. That's going to average around $200 million for the WNBA.
That's the part that's quietly poisoning this whole situation. It's easy to reject a deal when you're insulated from the consequences. When you've got endorsements, ownership stakes, alternative income streams, financial security. When the season being delayed doesn't threaten your rent or your future, but most players don't live in that world. The 6th player on the bench doesn't have leverage. She has bills. She has a short career window. She has one body and limited years to monetize it. And when she opens her email and sees a number that could change her life, she's not thinking about abstract solidarity. She's thinking about tomorrow. That's what makes this so volatile. Because union strategies only work when everyone's incentives align. And right now, they don't. Once one person signs, the moral high ground collapses. The unity fractures. The strategy implodes. Everyone else follows, not out of greed, but out of survival. And the league is betting that moment is coming. They're betting that real money beats slogans, that personal security beats collective anger. Eventually, someone will decide that $500,000 today is worth more than waiting on a promise that might never materialize. That's not evil. That's business.
People wouldn't notice the difference. Nobody would say to themselves, oh, wow, the talent has really dropped off this year. Nobody's going to be saying that. In fact, they'll be saying, wow, it's real calm this season. There's not so much complaining and whining going on this season. Start fresh with players that deserve money and with players that can push the league forward. Caitlin Clark.
The irony is that the star at the center of this could have been remembered as a trailblazer, a champion who helped usher in a new era of pay and respect. Instead, she's flirting with being remembered as the person who overplayed her hand so badly that she exposed the cracks in the entire movement. Because when fans start asking whether this is about fairness or power, you've already lost control of the narrative. And that's where this story is headed fast. Not with a dramatic showdown, not with a heroic stand, but with a quiet realization spreading through locker rooms that the deal on the table might not be perfect, but it's real. And the people telling you to refuse it might not be sacrificing anything at all. Once that realization sets in, the meltdown won't be loud. It'll be silent, one signature at a time. Because once the numbers are real, once the league has officially put money on the table, pretending this is still about symbolism becomes harder by the hour. That's the part the strategy didn't account for. You can rally people around injustice. You can mobilize outrage. But it's almost impossible to keep people unified when the injustice starts to look like a massive raise they're being told to reject.
You know how many kids from college will graduate this year and their first job won't be $76,000 a year? And we're praying for basketball players? Basketball players who Caitlin Clark made millions in the college basketball game, will continue to make millions in the WNBA, even though it won't come from a salary from the Indiana Fever. State Farm and all these other people that have jumped on board with Caitlin Clark, Nike or whatever, she's going to make plenty of money for playing back.
And the longer this drags on, the worse it looks for the people at the top pushing it, especially the ones with safety nets, especially the ones with alternative leagues waiting in the wings, especially the ones who won't feel the consequences if the season evaporates. Because here's the unspoken fear floating through this whole thing. If players start signing, not only does the leverage disappear, but the spotlight turns. And once the spotlight turns, the questions get sharper about conflicts, about motivations, about whether this was really about collective good or individual positioning. That's how reputations quietly unravel, not through scandal, through scrutiny. The league, meanwhile, doesn't have to rush. They've already shifted the battlefield. This is no longer a debate about whether players deserve more, because momentum is fragile. The league finally has it. Ratings up, attendance up, media attention up. New fans actually learning rosters and storylines. And nothing scares casual fans faster than the sense that a sport is about to disappear for reasons that feel messy and internal.
Would you be willing to sit out if negotiations don't work your way? Or
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously fighting the fight, and it's more than money. It's kind of all the things, all the benefits. It's getting a little bit loud in here, but making sure that we don't settle for anything less than what we deserve. So we hope that it doesn't come to that point, but also we know that the platform that we have as players is really strong.
They're not going to settle. They're not going to accept whatever the league is just telling them if it doesn't make sense to them. We're not going to do that to these women. All right? I hope the league knows that.
This should have been the easiest win imaginable. Accept the massive raise, lock in stability, build on growth, then fight for more next time with leverage that actually exists. Instead, it's turning into a standoff where the loudest voices are risking everything for a gamble they can personally survive. That's where the bitterness creeps in, not from owners, from within. Because at some point, someone's going to say what everyone's thinking, that it's easy to tell people to wait when you don't have to, that solidarity feels different when you're choosing between principles and groceries, that the movement starts to fracture when it stops reflecting the needs of the majority. And once that first crack appears, it spreads fast. And right in the middle of that storm sits the player who helped ignite it, the one whose name keeps coming up not as a savior, but as a complication. Because when people start associating you with lost money instead of earned progress, the shine fades quickly. This isn't about whether she's talented. That's not up for debate. This is about timing, optics, and overreach, about mistaking influence for immunity, about assuming the room will follow you anywhere just because it always has before. That's the irony here. The players already won. The numbers prove it. The offer proves it. The growth proves it.
Earlier today, I made a video making fun of people who are mad at WNBA players for protesting for more money. A lot of people said, Kev, you didn't even make an argument, so I will now. Here's what the WNBA players are asking for: a larger percentage of the revenue that the league generates. The main argument is that the WNBA is not profitable, therefore they should not be arguing for this. All right, let's take a look at that. And I'll agree with you. WNBA said they lost about $50 million last year. I can see that point. The NBA took about 25 years to become profitable, roughly 40 years to become consistently profitable. What helped the NBA attain profitability? Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. That rivalry.
But instead of cashing in, leadership decided to keep swinging, convinced there was still a knockout blow waiting. There isn't. There's just a ticking clock, a pile of unsigned contracts, and a growing sense that this entire saga didn't need to happen the way it did. That millions didn't have to be risked, that trust didn't have to be strained, that a moment of triumph didn't have to morph into a cautionary tale. Because when the dust settles, nobody's going to remember the protest props or the slogans on leadership, on priorities, on whether this era of growth turns into a foundation or collapses under its own ego. And the most brutal part? The decision won't be made in public. It'll be made quietly, contract by contract, player by player, as reality keeps doing what it always does.